Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to MMA Latest. We're here for the Alexander Volkov versus Curtis Blaydes preview. I'm here joined with Caoilte and Darren Russell. Guys, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Looking forward to the weekend. Obviously, outside of MMA, football's back this weekend, but we're here for some heavyweight action. And Darren, what are you thinking of Curtis Blaydes versus Volkov this weekend? Both of them have made a good weight, and it seems to be an excellent matchup for them.
Yeah, it's one of those fights where I look at it and think Curtis Blaydes is the guy who seems to be everyone outside of Francis Ngannou. If he wins this fight, he puts himself in a situation where he needs to either fight for the title or fight Francis Ngannou again, which I think after the last two fights, and they weren't that relatively in the past, it's like, what is the point of doing that fight again? So it's like, for Curtis Blaydes with a win, he's just going to have to either take fights that he doesn't need to take, like the Tony Ferguson one, or he's just going to have to kind of sit and wait for DC Cormier to play out, DC Miocic, followed by Ngannou's shot. And it's like, yeah, it's one of those weird situations. But I think Curtis Blaydes has got enough to get the win.
Yeah, obviously, Volkov is a lot the taller of the opponents. He's, 6'7", I believe. But obviously, Curtis Blaydes has got that wrestling behind him. Great. What are you pointing towards? I know you're going towards the wrestler or more of the striker tonight?
I'm going for the wrestler, man, because did you not see what Curtis Blaydes tweeted like about 2 hours ago? He gave everyone a stern warning. He's not going to stand and bang for 25 minutes. He wants to ragdoll him. So I wouldn't mind seeing Curtis Blaydes just out wrestle him, and because when you see heavyweights wrestle and when they wrestle like really good, if you see a man who's 6'7" getting thrown around the place, that's still pretty entertaining. But yeah, as soon if he gets on the ground and pound, those shots from Curtis Blaydes, he's so good on the ground. He's very heavy. He lands massive shots. Get to the ground, take him out. Easy as it gets. I think he wins it. I think he finishes it too. Actually,
Do you think those tweets are like half mind games of going like, listen, nobody expect me to stand and bang, to get that thing in Volkov's head now, going like, what's he actually going to do? Like, have we planned for a slugfest, and now he's going to come in and try and do this?
There's a really weird stat about that though, because I think it's if he has 8 minutes and something seconds of control time on the ground or something, he beats the previous record that was set by, I could be wrong, but I think it's Randy Couture. He sets some sort of record if he does it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make history and then finish it. I don't think it's mind games. I think he does what he says type of job. There's only so much you can expect as well.
Yeah, he did look great against Junior Dos Santos, of course. You know, it is a shame that he's already lost to Ngannou twice, and the heavyweight division has almost been stagnant recently because of who the champion is and because of DC. Now, once we get past that trilogy fight, it's going to be incredible to see what unfolds. Obviously, we're going to expect DC to retire, win or lose. But yeah, you must feel sorry for Curtis Blaydes. You almost want Volkov to win just so we can see maybe a fresh matchup for Francis Ngannou, Darren.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when we talk about Volkov, we're kind of talking about that Curtis Blaydes can take the guy down and wrestle him. But Volkov's never really shown much of a weakness in that aspect of his game. Like he's more known for his striking, but he's fought the likes of Fabricio Verdum, and we didn't really see Verdum take him down and dominate him on the ground. So it's a weird case of, are we all kind of overlooking Alexander Volkov in this fight just because of that sole loss of the question of his chin against Derek Lewis? You know, are we kind of underrating him going into this fight?
No. No, he stands a chance. Here's the thing, like everyone stands a chance. It's always, if you're getting in there professionally, you got your experience, you've got plenty of in you, but you're always going to stand a chance. Everyone's always going to be the favorite in the fight, and we're always going to lead towards him quite. But yeah, of course he has a chance, but yeah, I don't think he's going to win.
I think his performance against Greg Hardy must be in some people's mind as well, of thinking, you know, Greg Hardy's not a ranked guy. He's not particularly well thought of by some people. But Hardy took him the distance, and it's kind of, I'm sure that's playing doubts in some people's mind, betting-wise especially.
Like, if you told me that this guy who went the distance with Hardy, no disrespect to Greg Hardy, Like, he brought an absolute veteran in Volkov and an elite fighter all the way. If you have someone that Greg Hardy managed to do that, and then that guy is now fighting Curtis Blaydes, who is up there with the elite, you're like, it's a big jump in terms of like competition. I know he beat Hardy, but Blaydes is a much more difficult opponent, and I think he takes this.
Yeah, in fairness, Hardy was a late replacement opponent, wasn't he? And, he was, Hardy does hit hard, depending, he has his sort of, he's controversial within the sport and the organisation, but he does hit hard, and it is almost smart just for Volkov to use his height advantage and just play a more defensive role. But yeah, this definitely isn't going to 5 rounds, is it?
You wouldn't think so. I mean, Curtis Blaydes, said he's going to ragdoll him for 25 minutes, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting my money on this going to a decision. Maybe 3 rounds, I'd consider it, but definitely not 5.
Not going in your picks for Saturday night now.
No chance. Absolutely no chance.
That every single week, I'd be looking on Twitter and I see this is what Darren's picking every weekend, and I was like, I might have a punch at one of those. Weeks now. It's like a win. I'm like, Jesus, this man's betting well.
I think it's 4 of the last 5, and I'd love to be able to provide some sort of analytical style study like the likes of like Dan Tom and those guys do, where he sits and watches hours and hours of tape. But I look through the odds and go, yeah, I'll probably take that one, probably take that one, and then just tweet them out,
No special formulas, though.
No special formulas.
Yeah, Caoilte, I guess one last point is, obviously, with it being in the Apex, we've seen recently a lot of questions and, being asked towards that smaller cage. That's going to help Blaydes, I presume? Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, he goes distance sooner so he can get the takedown. It cuts off that big, long range that Volkov has. So as soon as Blaydes can get in range and, as he said himself, ragdoll him and get a hold of him, ragdoll him around the cage, then yeah, it's definitely in his favour. Should be a pretty good fight, dude.
Definitely. Okay, let's get some predictions out of you two. Darren first. See if we know.
I'm going to go Curtis Blaydes, 2nd round TKO. I'm going to go with.
I like it, but I'm going to give you one more round. I'm going to say he throws Volkov. Actually, no, I give Volkov maybe 1 round that he's, it's on the feet, it's a bit slow. And then Blaydes takes over in round 2 and round 3, he just finishes it off.
Nice. And now from one fight of the night contender to another, we've got Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos in the featherweight division. Caoilte, how excited are you for this bout?
I met Josh Emmett when probably it was my first UFC event, and he broke his finger, man. If you haven't seen it, go back and look at that fight. He won. I'm pretty sure it was his debut as well, but yeah, his finger was mangled. And he still managed to pull through and get the win. And I met him afterwards and spoke to him, and he's such a good guy. And I've kind of followed him ever since. I've seen him just progress and how legit he's become at 145 now, and the amount and the wins he's picked up. So I'm a big fan of him. But Burgos, you can't sleep on him. He's he's on the rise. He could be a future title contender come maybe a year later this year. He's really up there. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on him or have been sleeping on him, and now he's kind of come to fruition and people may think, okay, actually, he's become a serious contender. I really think this one could probably be fight of the night.
Yeah, again, it's one of those ones that you don't expect to go to full distance. Now, both of them do have knockout wins in their most recent bouts. But, they're both inside the top 10 as well. So, Darren, are you expecting a win for one of these will push them into the top 5, or at least close to right on the brim of that top 5, I imagine?
Yeah, I think when you look at the fight being the winner will get into the top 5, I look at Josh Emmett's style and think when he first joined the UFC, everything was quite close. His fights went to a decision quite a lot. And then he had that big fight against Ricardo Lamas where just something switched in his head and he just started knocking people clean out. I mean, he knocked out Ricardo Lamas, he knocked out Michael Johnson, he knocked out Mirsad Bektic, and it's like this guy's gone from being, a guy that grinds out results to a guy that's putting people to sleep. And it's just one of those fights where I can't pick either side who's going to win the fight. It's one of those try and avoid this fight at all costs betting wise, but in terms of viewing, get up and watch this fight.
Yeah, you got the main course in terms of the heavyweight division. This is one hell of a starter, and we could be seeing probably back-to-back knockouts, or at least finishes in that co-main and main event slot. We'll get a prediction for you, Caoilte. If you had to put your money on one of these fighters, who are you going for on the night?
I don't even know if I know what to pick. I'm gonna go with Emmett. I think Emmett can knock him out. I think he kind of has that power. He's a big step up in competition for Burgos as well, and he's got a lot of experience against fairly high-ranked opponents and elite opponents at 145 and just in his career in general. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Emmett. Probably. My picks are usually wrong now, so.
Yeah, I'll come to that before we get into yours, Darren. Burgos comes in with a 5.5-inch reach advantage. He's 5 inches tall as well. Would that play any part into Shane Burgos and, making him more the favourite in this bout?
You'd like to think so, especially in a striking aspect. And I think that's where the majority of this fight will be done. And with these type of fights where you expect to knock out, sometimes they're a lot more close than you imagine. And people are kind of a lot more, one of them plays the counter-striker tactic and one of them tries to push the pace. And I think if I was to make a prediction, I'd probably say Shane Burgos would edge a very close decision. The more I look at this fight, I think it will be one of the best fights of the night. But I think Shane Burgos may just edge a decision after 15 minutes.
Yeah, I love this fight. I think this is going to be guaranteed. At least one of them's walking away with a 50k bonus tomorrow. But we move on to the next bout, and of course, it's in the bantamweight division. We've got Raquel Pennington, former title challenger, versus Marion Reneau. Caoilte, what's your opinion on the bantamweight division at the moment? Obviously, we've got Amanda Nunes as champion. She could be taking a year out. We really need almost a reset in this division.
Oh man, that division needs contenders so badly. Amanda Nunes is absolutely wrecking shop, and no one is going to stop her anytime soon. If she does take a year out, I think she probably deserved it. Realistically, she's done so much for the sport, and she defended the belt at both weight classes. She's been phenomenal. Yeah, she probably deserves the break if she does decide to take it, and I'd say an interim title fight is probably there for someone. Don't particularly know who, but I don't think this fight is going to bring forward a title contender straight off the bat anyway.
No, of course, Pennington she recently fought Amanda Nunes at a title. It wasn't competitive at all. So it's hard to rebook her into another title fight, Darren.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things when you look at the division, really, and you think Jermaine Durandame would probably get an interim title shot. She's beat Holly Holm, so that rules Holly Holm out of. She seems to always get a title shot at Holly Holm somewhere along the line. She works her way into that position, and I think she even gave an interview yesterday and said she's looking towards having a title fight after she fights Irene Aldana. And you look at the rankings and think, well, if she does beat Irene Aldana, she will be probably up there in contention.
Yeah, it's going to, Nunes also came out this week and said she's contemplating retirement. So even then, she could retire, and there's two divisions that are then vacant again. But as you said, you mentioned Valentina Shevchenko. She's going to be watching very closely to the prelims this weekend as Roxanne Modafferi takes on Lauren Murphy. The winner of this bout is touted to be the next in line at the 125 champion. Caoilte, are you going for Modafferi or Murphy in this bout?
Modafferi. She's kind of like a safe bet at this point. I kind of see her taking this one handily. Fairly solid fighter. She's done it all really at this point. Well, she's not done it all. She's beaten quite decent opposition. She's faced. Who she beat last time? She beat Shevchenko, doesn't she?
Macy Barber.
Macy Barber.
Yeah, I think it's one of those for Roxanne Modafferi. You never want to pick against her because she's such a nice person in general, and she's such a likable character. It's like, but she's not won twice in a row in the UFC. So it's like, it's one of those, does she upset the form book and win this fight? You'd like to think so based on her experience, and she's just generally a lot more well-rounded than Lauren Murphy, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the records here. You've got 12-4 Lauren Murphy, and then you've got 24-17 for Modafferi. And you can't sort of deny that level of experience of Modafferi. She is the happy warrior. But the only question against that fight against Macy Barber did did she have a half tear of the ACL in that first round and was unable to finish Barber with Modafferi? So you have to put that into question. But yeah, I'm slightly edging towards the experience in this bout.
Yeah, I think with regards to a title shot, I think the Joe Calderwood fight is the next one for Valentina. And then now you've got Cynthia Calvillo with her win, has pushed herself right into contention. And does the winner face Cynthia Calvillo maybe for the right to be the next one? You still got Jessica Ai kind of floating around as well, and Caitlin Chukagian. It's a tough one.
Chukagian versus Calvillo. Winner of that gets Valentina then for the title.
Makes sense. I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all.
I think I kind of want to see Jojo fight for the title, though. You know, Scotland haven't had much success, really, in the UFC. Well, they had Stevie Ray, but no one's fought for a title yet, and it'd be nice to see. And the UK kind of needed a champion soon, and she has all the potential to be a champion.
Yeah, I think that fight was meant to happen in August, and obviously I think Valentina Shevchenko's got that leg injury. Now, she hasn't come out and said when she'll be back, but again, I want to see that fight, be promised and be rescheduled. And I think, as you said, Caoilte, to see a Scottish fighter fight for the title, albeit maybe not in the best division for it to happen, but again, it's a historic moment and one I'm buzzing to see when it happens. Moving it back over to the welterweights on that main card. We'll continue with this main card. We've got Belal Muhammad versus Lyman Good. Caoilte, who are you edging towards in this bout?
I was edging towards Belal Muhammad for probably the last week, and I was thinking, he's a solid player. You can't really bet against him. I never really have. I always have enjoyed watching him, but I was listening to Lyman Good earlier, and he was the first UFC fighter that tested positive for COVID, and he's going through the death of his father recently as well. So he's come through so much. I kind of imagine that this fight means quite a lot to him. He's trained very hard and come through so much that I'm kind of rooting for him a bit as a result, because you want to see someone that is going to do well after coming through so much adversity. And I started looking at more of his fights, the results, started looking into him a bit more, and yeah, I can kind of see him maybe pulling this one off, but it's a very close fight either way.
Yeah, definitely, Darren. You've got a very good fighter in Lyman Good, but yeah, are you edging towards Belal Muhammad perhaps?
I think it's such a close fight, and you consider that these people were due to fight at UFC 249. It fell through, so they've been preparing to fight each other for probably 5 or 6 months at this point. And as well as what's happened to Lyman Good, you look at those situations and have seen recently that sometimes that emotion can be too much in the cage, and maybe it's not the right decision to come in after a loss. But obviously, we've seen in the last event the emotions there when you've seen the guy win, who's been through a lot lately, and it's hard to root against those type of guys. And I think it'll be quite a close, sort of well-matched fight between the two, where it's again hard to kind of pick between them. But I'd probably pick Lyman Good just based on his story, really, just because I want him to win.
I want to see those guys.
Definitely. Yeah. You saw Cody Starman last weekend after he got his win, and it does tug on the heartstrings. So yeah, let's see a good performance from Lyman Good. But we move on to Jim Miller. The veteran here is coming up against Roosevelt Roberts, who's coming off a recent bout against Brock Weaver. That was a pretty tasty one. Do you expect to see the same this weekend from him, Caoilte?
I don't know, actually. Roberts is one of those guys who's come through the Contender Series, and that Contender Series has just produced so much talent. It's actually amazing, and they're all, and he's just another one of those. We've had Sean O'Malley, what was it, last weekend? And now you have, or 2 weekends ago, excuse me. And now you have Roberts coming through. They're really pushing on in the UFC now, and I've got high hopes. I think he's going to do really well. But this is a massive test for him. And I think it was Jim Miller had over 20 UFC fights by the time Roberts even debuted in MMA. It's crazy, that jump in experience. And it's going to be tough for him. If he gets it, it is massive for him, and it's going to be huge for his career. I don't know if he's does take control. I think if it goes to the ground, I think Miller's just far too good. But it's one of those fights that you can probably see someone walking away with 50K afterwards because, you know, Robert's coming in here looking for something to prove against a veteran who's known for exciting fights, good performances, always like known for getting finishes. And Miller's, you know, he's just looking to put a stop to another prospect trying to climb the ranks. He wants to get cash in his pocket and get another bonus maybe.
Yeah, you do see, we saw Chase Hooper almost get pushed into the deep end a bit too far back at UFC 250. So Roosevelt Roberts, obviously these Contender Series guys, they have a little bit something towards them. They have their backstory, and they're almost getting a bit, you know, like a 10% extra push. Do you think this could potentially be too much for him going up against a wily veteran, Jim Miller, who's, you know, 31-14? That's a lot of experience coming up against on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's true. And I think you look at Contender Series and how many stars that brought on, like Caoilte said, and Sean O'Malley, they're the perfect example. And you look at Roosevelt Roberts and think this is probably a real tough matchup for his style as well. In terms of Roosevelt Roberts has got quite a few submission wins on his belt, but Jim Miller has got submission wins on his belt for years and years and years and years. It's not like he's just started picking up these wins. And these are normally the fights that Jim Miller wins as well. He always seems to win these fights, and I think the odds don't really reflect that. I think, like we talked about, the hype that you get from Contender Series and that extra push. A bit like Chase Hooper was like a huge favourite, and I even picked him, like, you know, last week. And when the fight started, I was watching it going, why have I bet on him at like 4-1 on? Like, especially when you see him start to strike, and you're like, I picked the wrong guy here. And I think for Roosevelt Roberts to jump from Brock Weaver to a guy like Jim Miller is a huge step to take. But it's, you know, can he deal with the pressure? I think Jim Miller, you know, he's always been a fan favourite. So you think about the atmosphere he normally builds off, won't be there in the Apex, which I think is something else you have to bring into consideration for this fight.
Have you seen the odds for this before the fight, actually? I haven't actually looked at them yet for that one.
I can get them to you. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, Jim Miller's 15-8 and Roosevelt Roberts is 5-2 on.
They're actually not bad.
Jim Miller's not a bad bet.
I was going to bet that. I wouldn't mind Jim Miller for a finish there, submission. I think Miller for a submission would be a good shout.
9-2.
9-2.
9-2.
Aaron might be getting added to the accumulator.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, we had a lot of questions, and, you know, there was a lot of hate going towards last weekend's card, but there's absolutely nothing bad you can say towards this week's card. It's absolutely incredible. And, you know, we've got one UFC debut coming in. Max Rohskopf is coming in. Darren, what have you got to say about the young kid coming in?
Aaron's his hype man over here.
This is my guy, basically. This is my guy. No, it's so I worked in Las Vegas about a year ago for a promotion called FFC, and the first show I rocked up to like 2 days before was this kid called Max Rohskopf fighting on the card, 1-0 at the time. You know, he looks the part, he talks the part, he's so self-confident beyond belief. And just the first fight I watched him in, I was just like, straight away, this kid's going to be a star. And the next 6 months, he picks up another 3 wins, and I'm like, this kid has just got everything. He's got the right team, the right mentality. You know, he's trained by Extreme Couture, Robert Drysdale. You know, those two as a coaching team and being based in Vegas just points towards nothing but a win for him, for me this weekend. He's just one of those fighters who I think we can all look at a fighter we've watched and go, yeah, that guy's got it, you know.
After that first fight, I messaged you about the event. I wanted to see how it went. Because I remember when you were going over there, we were chatting, we were going over and back about it. And you said, this guy, he's one to watch. And I remember I watched it back because they were on Thursday nights. It was really awkward for over here. All the fights were on Thursday. So I remember watching it back on a Friday and thinking, it's like, one and all, it's like, it's guy from Team Alpha Male. He's like, with a bit more experience. Like, see if he's any good now. And then I was thinking, okay, he landed this big overhand right, or this big right hand, and drops Hussein. I'm like, okay. And then he starts working on the floor, and starts thinking, okay, he's really, really good. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, Darren was right about this guy. He's up there. And then I watched him afterwards, and I was going back and forth with you while you were in Vegas, and you were obviously telling me different stories about maybe either matches he could have been in, or just stuff about him in general, and and the hopes you had for him. And he's like lived up to everything so far.
Yeah, and 20, I think he's just turned 25, but for such a young lad, he's been through so much as a kid. He's had a tough upbringing. He moved to Vegas to focus on training, which I don't know how many people could move to Vegas and go, yeah, I'm going to focus on working on my game, working in the gym, because Vegas isn't really a place for, working in the gym or doing this type of stuff. But you move from Ohio to Vegas under this, the work Robert Drysdale's done with him and Eric Nixick at Extreme Couture, you can see leaps. And I watched him spar against some real elite guys, top 5 guys in the UFC, and he doesn't look anywhere close to being out of place. And the scariest thing is he's still getting better. You spoke there about his striking, and that's what when I look at the betting for this weekend, obviously it's heavy into predicting Max will submit the guy. But I've watched him. I think in every fight I've watched him, or in 3 of the fights I've watched, he's knocked the guy down in the first 10 seconds. So he's got some power in his hands as well.
He's actually a favourite. I looked at his line in particular. It kind of came up there on Twitter maybe about 10 minutes before this, and I think he was a minus 100 favourite at the time, which it's still small odds the favourite. But I don't know if it's gone up since. But like the hype behind him is actually building very, very fast. In the space of 1 week, people who may have not heard of him before are really jumping on, thinking, okay, this guy he might be the real deal here.
I took when the betting opened, when the fight got announced, I was one of the people just waiting for the betting to open, thinking, I wonder if he's going to be an underdog or how. And they opened up as, I think it was 11-8 on was the price I took, and now he's been backed all the way into 2-1 on. That's just UK sort of betting odds. So I don't know if it's me personally that's made this difference, and me betting my own money or me telling people to bet on him, but. Yeah, I can't see past him, and I think it's more down to his skill set and his mentality. His mentality is just incredible.
Going over and back with Mitch in the group before this. So in the past week, as soon as it was announced, I've been talking to the guys. I think I rang Mitch as well one night, and we were talking. And I said to Mitch, like I'm telling you, this guy, he's good. Darren's not just selling him good; like he's actually good. He thinks.
It's a weird thing. I feel nervous going into the fight, and I'm not hugely connected with the guy. We talk every now and again, but it's like as if it's my friend fighting or my best mate or my son or something is fighting, and it's a crazy, bizarre feeling how nervous I am.
Oh, that's bad.
Crazy.
What do you think, Mitch? Have you done your research?
I've done looking here, he's got 5 submission wins out of 5. It's hard to bet against someone like that when they're so consistent. It's going to be huge. And yeah, if I'm betting probably on Saturday night, I'm definitely going towards a submission bet, probably in the first round for Max Rohskopf, because especially Austin Hubbard, he didn't look great against Marco Madsen, and he's coming in on the late notice fight here.
What's funny is Hubbard is coming off a loss to a wrestler, a very, very good wrestler. And he didn't look great in it. Madsen, incredible. He's a fantastic player. But and he's coming in now, and his opponent's changed. He's gone from Selecki to a former collegiate wrestler who was probably one of the best in the country. And from what I know, he was one of the best in the country anyway. And he's going from Selecki to Max to another wrestler. You can't help but think, okay, Matt, he's gonna be repeated last time, and Max is gonna get the win here. And I think he actually finishes it.
You talk about his wrestling there as well, and a good story he told me about his wrestling was the first season he was in the wrestling squad. He finished 1-17, like one of the worst ranked wrestlers. And then the next year, I think he said basically all summer, I was just so devastated at how upset I was with my performance. And the next summer he come back and was number 2 in the whole country. And it's to make that jump from 1 year being, literally one of the worst guys in the country to being one of the best. just shows again his mindset and how determined the guy is to be the best at what he does.
Like the change in mentality that must have been through to go from that level to being so, so good in just the space of a year is absolutely insane and shows the kind of progression. But like that probably means he's learning so fast and developing so fast as well. And I guess that's transitioned quite well in a way.
Yeah, and going into his, jiu-jitsu, they talk about matching him up with Nicky or Gordon Ryan for a jiu-jitsu match because his jiu-jitsu is that highly rated because of the gym he's from. And I looked at the betting this weekend to go back to that, and I've where I thought the submission looks likely, but I can see Rohskopf knocking the guy out because I know I've witnessed it in front of me, and I can see, although he's a wrestler with a great ground game, he has got solid power in his hands. So I looked at a double chance of knockout or submission, and that was like 13-10, which I was like, take my money now, take all of it.
Well, we've heard it now, Darren.
Don't tweet me if he loses.
Everyone just start attacking Darren and Twitter. He's like, what the hell? He goes, didn't know. We're talking about Max, and we're obviously considering your connections with him, Darren, and how close we've spoken about him for quite a while now. It may seem quite biased that we're like leaning quite towards him. Like we've already mentioned how we've chosen him already as our picks. But obviously, we can't overlook Hubbard as well. Like he's got an amazing amount of experience. He's a massive step up in competition as well. So he's got the skill set there. He's fought some decent level opponents. Like obviously that fight against Madsen, high level opponent, didn't get the win, but still he's up. He's around. It's a big step up for Max. But what I want to kind of pick at you with Darren is, how far can Max go? Like, so if he wins this, that's obviously a very good start to his UFC career, coming in on late notice. If he wins, then it's huge. If he finishes it, it's crazy then. Like, how far can he go from knowing him and seeing him firsthand? What do you think his potential is?
Well, I think the crazy thing about him is if he does win this fight, he does finish the guy. I think no matter what happens in this fight, Rohskopf will want to fight again in 2 months, probably. You're going to have to look at his 2019. I think he fought in MMA 4 times. He fought probably 10 jiu-jitsu matches. And he wanted way more fights than those 4. We just literally could not squeeze any more opponents in for him in that time. And it was. I mean, you look back to that time where he fought Zach Zane. Zach Zane's a guy who had 21 fights on his record. He just fought in Bellator and won there, beat Naino Adung, who was like a highly touted Hawaiian prospect. And Zach Zane came in and took that fight on like 4 days' notice, flew from Hawaii to fight Max Rohskopf. And Max Rohskopf just came in and made a very highly skilled guy look very, very ordinary, and submitted him in just over a minute. And I think that's the thing about him. His performances are so kind of devastating in what he does, and he just wants to keep going and going and going. So I think if you win this fight, he'll probably want to fight in the Apex again in 2 or 3 weeks' time, because he's that kind of sort of guy with that mentality. And when you go back and talk about his wrestling days, about making weight, making weight in wrestling so much more brutal in MMA, where you're doing it, 3 days in a row, you're cutting weight and making weight, cutting weight and making weight. And I think for him to make 155 is pretty straightforward, no matter what the notice is.
But haven't got there, Darren. How far do you think you can go?
I think with watching him fight and watching him train and his mentality, I think there's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be surprised to see him be a UFC champion in the next 3 or 4 years, because he's got the right style to win anyone you kind of put in front of him. And I've seen him spar, guys that are of elite UFC level, and I'm not saying too much about who he fought, but he looked great.
Nice. So, like, with Vegas, kind of like, you were there for how long? Yes,
about 6 months on and off, kind of traveling back and forth between shows, but it was a great experience.
That's crazy. What was it like working with kind of the commission then? Because obviously getting things cleared. And that, like, for you would have been, I don't know if it would have been difficult or not, but now the commission are quite heavily involved in things in the Apex, and considering current climate and circumstances and everything that's going on in the world, it's like, how difficult was it to get these put on, and how difficult was it to get past the commission? What's it like working with them?
I think the biggest shock initially was in the UK, there is no commission at all. You know, I can go, you know, to Manchester one night and say, right, I'm putting this 16-0 guy versus someone who's 0-20, and there's no arguments about that. There's nobody to kind of answer to. Whereas with the commission in Vegas, you have to submit forms to say, this is the guy, these are his highlights, this is his record, and I want to face him against this guy, and these are his highlights, this is his record, and this is my justification for this fight. And then it goes to Jeff Mullen and the rest of the staff at the commission, who watches the highlights and studies the fighters and goes yes or no and provides feedback. So it's a very different process, but it's so much better for fighters and for athletes that they have to go through all the correct medical checks through the commission, all the weights are checked by the commission, everything's way that really is the way it should be done. And I think the fact it isn't that way in the UK probably points towards how far behind we are in comparison to everyone else. To end that on a sad note, but the commission were, I think in terms of what they do for the fighters is great, and the relationship kind of we had with them over time only got better and better and better. They were actually a really nice group of people to work with, all of them, to be honest.
Nice. I kind of envy it. Like, if you go back over, can me and Mitch, tag along?
I love Vegas in general. Vegas is a place, like, if anyone has never been to Vegas, like, it's such a great experience, both for fighting, for everything else Vegas has. It's just a different experience, but one day maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people go out to Vegas for the casinos and whatnot, but I'm almost more envious to go out there to what, to get to the T-Mobile Arena, watch one of those huge pay-per-view fights, and also now we've got the UFC Apex. It's, I wonder how long it is before we get almost a UFC Apex in the UK or something like that, where we've got such, we've got performance institutes being built across the world. It's only a matter of time, I think, before we get one in at least Ireland or the UK, as a, in England perhaps. But yeah, it's very envious.
You've got the UFC gym set up over here now. They're I can't remember all the locations or how many locations there even are, but I know there's here
in England.
I think they set like an ambition to do like 300 of them, and launched, I think, like the first 2 or 4, and it was like 300 is like, as a concept, you think that concept probably works like in big cities, but I live like sort of rural, in a little town. I don't expect a UFC gym to pop up in Southport anytime soon,
Yeah. Mitch, is there one near you? Because like you're just outside Manchester.
There's one in Nottingham, and I think London, like closer to London, Milton Keynes, I think makes sense.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think one would be in Manchester soon, especially with Bisping having his connections around. I think.
Yeah.
And you've now got you've got a big monster gym in Ireland now, haven't you, with Kavanagh?
Oh man. Yeah, but you couldn't turn something like that into the Apex, man. That is SBG. You couldn't do that. SBG is like, that gym's in a world of its own. From what I've seen, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it'd be so cool if you got something like a performance style institute between UK and Ireland. Like, it'd be just for fighters to even come train at. If it was like a stop off for fighters who are traveling or just want to come and visit a country, it's pretty cool to do something like that. But I'd love it for something like that to happen quite soon.
I think considering like the size of the Apex as it is now, it's like 120,000 square foot. So it's like, it'd have to be kind of, in the UK, it'd have to be somewhere rural. But I think considering they're building in China, I think Puerto Rico as well, they're building a PI. So I don't think doing it in the UK is a million miles off.
That'd be insane. Yeah, considering the amount of talent that is around at the moment, it wouldn't really make much. It'd be rude. It'd be rude of them not to come here, come here, come over to the UK and actually build something, because there's so much talent between the two islands. I think Ireland, probably bit of a better spot, to be honest with you. You know?
Well, that's got to be the other thing about Ireland in general. They were meant to have the show there, and now that's cancelled with the Whittaker-Till fight. And it's like, when will they next come back to Dublin? Is that going to go as soon as they're back to be able to travel, or is it going to be back further down the line?
Hey, don't rule it out. Like, if you got Sean O'Malley on the way up and Joseph Duffy comes back and gets a few wins, you know, you never know. They could come back here soon.
Okay, let's get your prediction. 3 fights to watch this weekend, Darren. What's the 3 fights you're looking out for and want fans should have their eyes on?
So we've already spoke about Shane Burgos versus Josh Emmett. That has to be kind of the first name at the top of the list. I think for me anyway, I'd have to say Max Rohskopf, because I'm interested to see. I've watched him train with people at this level. I'm interested to see how he actually looks in the octagon, short notice. And I'd say the other one, Clay Guida, is always fun to watch. So I've always got an eye on that Clay Guida versus Bobby Green fight. I think Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts as well kind of piques my interest more so than some of the main card fights, actually.
And yourself, Kuwait? 3 fights to watch?
I'm going to leave out the Max one because we've already spoken so much and Darren has him in there. I'm going to go with the co-main because I think that's going to be an absolute banger. So Emmett and Burgos, I don't know, depends on how you say it. I'm going to go with Roberts and Miller. I think that could be fantastic. Probably a massive step up for Roberts, but Miller is always an exciting fight. You look at all the bonuses he's picked up over the years and think, this could be really good. And outside of that, Frank Camacho. There we go. That's who I was thinking of. That guy, when he gets in there, like, you know, there's going to be some heavy shots thrown. Like, it's one of those fights. He likes to be in fights that are just exciting, back and forth. He's got a chin of steel, and he just loves to scrap. And I think, that's my other one. I think that's one that's flying under the radar massively. I think that could be, they're my 3.
He's actually fighting a short notice replacement as well in Justin James, who he's another guy I watched spar. I think he was due to actually fight on the show in Vegas we had last year.
Oh yeah.
And his style as well is fan favorite. Swing from the hips, go for it. So I think as a perfect dance partner for Franz Camacho, I think Justin James is up there.
I didn't get a chance to actually look in. I knew he had the replacement, and I didn't get a chance to look into it. But I was thinking that because Camacho, I remember I've spoken to Camacho a few times, and I remember watching his fights afterwards, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is he just goes for it. But no, here now, it's like that one, that's actually that could be fight of the night as well, depending on how the other fights go. But I'd say it's up there. Right, Mitch, you've got the last call. What do you think?
Definitely.
What's left?
Yeah, no. I'm going to look at Roxanne Modafferi and the Lauren Murphy fight just because the title implications it could have. The co-main event is the one that really gets the mouth watering. That Josh Emmett Shane Burgos fight is, there's going to be a knockout guaranteed in that fight. And I'll go with Raquel Pennington versus Marion Reneau. It's not the greatest matchup, but I think it'd be interesting to see what Raquel Pennington does. And she does have Tisha Torres fighting on earlier in the night, so depending on how Tisha Torres' fight goes, could determine how Raquel Pennington's fight goes. Well, it's always difficult when you've got a couple fighting on the same card.
I think the other one to look at as well, Oscar Piachota from a European point of view. When he come through Cage Warriors, I was like, this guy is absolutely destroying. I think it was Jason Radcliffe he knocked out, and I was like, this kid has got it all, And then he joined the UFC. I think he's lost 3 in the bouts now, where it's like he's now fighting for his place in the UFC, which, normally brings out the best in people. So I think that's one of kind of interesting to see how that goes.
And White was actually pointing that fight out to be one to watch as well.
Yeah, everyone was shocked about that, weren't they?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised at myself. I was thinking, I was like, really? But yeah, when you make that point, I guess you kind of see it might bring out the best in him considering the losses he's had.
I just seen Dana White point out the fight and was hoping he pointed out the Rohskopf fight, but to no avail. Maybe he doesn't know a lot about him.
Probably know a lot about him come Sunday morning, I imagine.
You never know. Regardless, be fantastic. Fantastic fight, that one. And the entire card should be absolutely phenomenal anyway. That small cage seems to make a difference. So I think the entire card should be good. Kind of just grateful we have fights considering.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I don't, you know, the MMA world, especially the fan side, always have something to complain about, but I don't see how you can complain for the next month of MMA. We're absolutely spoiled for fights with, you know, Fight Island coming up as course. But just we've not spoken to you in a while, Darren. What's been your thoughts on, one, the smaller cage, and two, the no fans aspect? Have you enjoyed it? Has it played much of a part in terms of enjoying MMA from a fan's perspective?
I always prefer the smaller cage because, and it's the same, I never used to like watching MMA in a ring, but when you actually watch MMA in a ring, it encourages people to strike because there's no cage to grapple against. When people lean against the ropes, everyone outside is a bit like, whoa, people could start falling out. So I think the smaller cage, there's less space behind someone to back up to. There's only so far you can go. And I think the difference is like 6 foot, which is quite a long way back. If you're trying to back up to the cage, all of a sudden 3 steps and you're back against the cage and you know, the guy's rushing onto you. And I think, yeah, it just makes it more exciting. I can see why some of the fighters are saying it could have a detrimental effect on their game or their style. I can kind of get that. But I think as long as you know which one you're fighting in, you know, you can prepare. I remember we had a coach on the Vegas show, and that's a ring. And we shown the coach to the ring, and he said, "Oh, when's the cage coming?" And I said, "It isn't. This is where the fight." So I thought, this poor fighter has done his prep for 6 to 8 weeks, and his coach never realised it was a ring. So that was all. And I think that the no fans for certain fighters it will affect some people, but I think for others it probably makes it feel more like a kind of sparring session a little bit, which I think for some fighters will bring out the best in them because you feel kind of there won't be as much pressure, I wouldn't say, under the usual kind of 7,000 or 8,000 people in an arena compared to, you know, there's about 40 or 50 people in a room basically.
How I always see the fact that, you know, when there's no fans and there's no audience, it's like, it kind of reminds me of kind of the, not really old school, but more just as competitions are starting out. Like, I've been to plenty of shows, or like club shows, where it's just like a ring. It's just like a ring. You get obviously the medics or whatever, and then you just have people from each club, and there's no massive fans or anything. It's like you see at tournaments quite a lot. This happens a fair amount over Ireland. Obviously, there's a lot of shows in Ireland now, so you get obviously more fans. But there's like club shows, for example. It kind of reminds me of that. And if you've had guys who experience that, it's like kind of a bit of a throwback. So I always like it because you can hear the shots more. It's kind of a bit more intimate in a sense as well when there's no audience.
It's like the ultimate fight, but at a high level. It's so intriguing to actually listen to and to hear. Like in the UFC big events, they have a mic dangling from the cage, so you can hear the shots anyway. But when you can actually hear the shots, regardless of the mic or where it is, you can just hear everything land, flush, and it just makes you kind of realize what the sport actually is.
Makes you realize how gruesome it can be, but we love it all the same.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I've almost enjoyed it. Somewhat, you know, almost the same, especially when you can hear both corners giving advice to their corners as much. You know, it's a lot more clearer, especially, you know, we go back to Anthony Smith saying his teeth were falling out and giving them to the referee. You wouldn't get that as clear if you had fans in the cage. There's no booing when fighters are on the ground, which is a nice aspect to have from watching on TV, because I feel like we sometimes lose the art of grappling from the fans' perspective in the audience. And yeah. Also, we've got commentators being told to be a little bit quieter. They're coaching from the sidelines.
And also the biggest thing, there's no Ric Flair woos, which is the biggest win for me, because that is the worst thing ever.
Oh, they're in my head. Actually, you know, one thing I'm really happy the UFC, or not even the UFC, maybe ESPN has decided not to do is what, like, ever since the football's come back, have you noticed, like, is it like the fact they started bringing in, like,
FIFA 20 sound clips?
Yeah.
Completely awful. And it's the timing's completely off. Imagine watching fights with, like, this fake crowd that's probably been pulled from EA UFC 3. They just took the soundtrack from that and started pressing buttons. Oh, I lose it.
I think probably the concern with the football was how often everyone swears. I think was the I was reading something that's why they pumped in the soundtrack, because they were like, imagine 2:00 on a Saturday, like everyone's effing every like 2 seconds, in the game, and it's like, whereas in MMA we're kind of, I think because people are smacking each other around the head, we're kind of like, we can tolerate the odd F-bomb here and there,
Yeah, there's a bit more like tolerance to that side of football. If you get young and watching football, that'd be very easy.
Yeah, almost the last month. I saw Steven Nelson. He was watching the Coppa Italia, and they started putting virtual tifos and stuff on the broadcast, just so the seats don't look as empty. It's kind of crazy what football are doing to cover up their broadcast. But yeah, I'm happy with what MMA are doing and what the UFC are doing as a whole.
Oh man, they can keep doing it as long as they put on fights.
Exactly.
I can't come fast enough. I'm buzzing for all that.
Those cards are incredible as well. We'll be covering them as and when they come off, of course. But yeah, I think that's a good place to almost wrap it up, guys. Where can they find you, Darren?
So I work with a few different places, but check out like Rackner Media in general. We basically run a load of big Facebook pages where we post some nice highlights from the likes of PFL, Brave, WGP, some infusion kickboxing, just a bit of everything. You can check us kind of out to enjoy some fights from the comfort of your armchair every night.
Definitely. We'll put some links in the description for that. And Caoilte, where can people find you?
Well, since no one can say my name, probably no point in me even going there, man. Just like related page every now and again, and you might see my handle then, because no one's going to be able to spell my name. It's fair to be able to say it, so it's nothing related. You might see.
No worries. Yeah, it's been a great chat. We did have some technical difficulties throughout this week, but we've done it, and we're going to be looking forward to hopefully United tonight, get a good win. But yes, that is the end of tonight's preview with Volkov versus Curtis Blaydes. Make sure to hit subscribe, like, and share the video, of course, and we'll see you on the next one.